Good afternoon. We're continuing with the laws of davening. We're on Kuf Ches Tes 108.9, and we're talking about what happens if a person forgets to daven Shmona Esrei. So the rule is that he makes up two Shmona Esreis. The next service he davens twice. So if he misses Mincha, he davens two Marivs. And yesterday we talked about, that's all. We mentioned Erev Shabbos. What if someone forgets Erev Shabbos? Right? It's all fine and good if you forget Mincha weekday Shmona Esrei, so you'll daven two Mariv weekday Shmona Esreis. But what if Mariv isn't the weekday? It's Shabbos. Forget it Friday afternoon. So we mentioned that you still daven two Shmona Esreis, even though the Shmona Esrei you're making up, namely of Shabbos, is not the Shmona Esrei you missed, which was a weekday. Now we're going to learn the Ramah on the same halacha we saw yesterday. What happens if it's Erev Rosh Chodesh, Mincha? That means at Mariv it will be Rosh Chodesh, and by Mincha you forgot to say a Shmona Esrei. Do you say Yalav Yavo in the makeup Shmona Esrei? Because let's look at it. On one hand, you forgot a weekday Shmona Esrei because it wasn't Rosh Chodesh yet, and you wouldn't say Yalav Yavo. But on the other hand, when you're doing the makeup Shmona Esrei, it's already Rosh Chodesh. And when you daven Shmona Esrei on Rosh Chodesh, you say Yalav Yavo. So let's see what the Ramah says to do. V'hu adin, im lo ispalo mincha be'erev Rosh Chodesh. If someone forgets to daven mincha on the eve of Rosh Chodesh, so right before Rosh Chodesh, mispal Rosh Chodesh shtayim. He davens two Rosh Chodesh Shmona Esreis twice. He davens twice, and he says Yalav Yavo in both. Okay. Now, what happens if he forgets Yalav Yavo? V'im hisker Yalav Yavo b'rishona v'hisker b'shniya. Sorry, v'im lo hisker Yalav Yavo b'rishona v'hisker b'shniya tzarich lachzor ela hispala. If he doesn't say Yalav Yavo in the first Shmona Esrei, but does say it in the second Shmona Esrei, he has to go daven again. Now, why is that? So the reason is, we've mentioned many times before, that whenever we daven a makeup Shmona Esrei, the makeup has to go second. The Shmona Esrei, which we're required to say, we have to daven that first. So first, we daven for Marv of Rosh Chodesh, and the second Shmona Esrei we daven is for the makeup Mincha. So if this guy in the first Shmona Esrei did not say Yalav Yavo, but in the second Shmona Esrei did say Yalav Yavo, that means in his mind, the first Shmona Esrei was for Mincha, and the second was for Marv. So that means his Shmona Esrei, his makeup Shmona Esrei, didn't count because he did it in the wrong order. And we can tell it was the wrong order because he did not say Yalav Yavo in the second one, but he did say it in the... Sorry, he did not say... He did not say it in the first one, but he did say it in the second one. So since he did not say it in the first one, that shows that it was for Mincha, which is the makeup. And since he did say it in the second one, it shows that was for Mariv. So he did it in the wrong order, so he didn't fulfill his obligation. Aval, im lo hisker b'shteyim. Let's say he didn't say Yalav Yavo in both. So the halacha is, in general, is that if you forget Yalav Yavo in Mariv of Rosh Chodesh, you do not have to go back and daven again. If you forgot it in Shachris and Mincha, you do. But if you forgot it in Mariv, you don't. So here a guy, let's say he forgets to daven Mincha. He's doing a lot of forgetting today. He forgot to daven Mincha totally in Mincha of Shmona Esrei, in his Erev Rosh Chodesh Shmona Esrei. And then when he did the two makeups, he didn't say Yalav Yavo in either of them. Oh, hisker b'rishona v'lo b'shniya, or he said Yalav Yavo in the first and not the second. Ein tzarich lachzor. He doesn't have to go back and daven, right? Because since he forgot it in both, it's clear that he wasn't making the first one as the tashlumin, the first one as the makeup. Only in the previous case, where he did not say Yalav Yavo in the first one and did say it in the second one, it's clear that he meant the first Shmona Esrei to be a tashlumin, to be the makeup. But if he forgot Yalav Yavo in both, then we don't see anything from that, so he fulfilled his obligation. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Shtayim v'chein pasko Magen Avraham v'Darech Chaim v'Shar Achronim delo kalavush v'siyato shesovrim de'ein tzarich lasker b'shniya shel Rosh Chodesh. So he cites an opinion that in the second Shmona Esrei you do not need to say Yalav Yavo, but we don't paskin like that. Mishalo is pal arvis b'Rosh Chodesh. So let's say, so far until now we've been talking about someone forgets Mincha on Erev Rosh Chodesh. Let's say he forgot Marv on Rosh Chodesh. He forgot Marv of Rosh Chodesh. So v'hispal shachar shtayim. So he davens two shacharises, right, regular. V'lo hisker b'shniya Yalav Yavo. But let's say he in the second one Second Shemona Esrei, he did not say Ya'aleh V'yavo. So now why is that significant? So I just mentioned that if someone forgets Ya'aleh V'yavo in Ma'ariv of Rosh Chodesh, he does not have to go back. But if he forgets Ya'aleh V'yavo in Shachris, he does have to go back. So now, what's our case? A guy forgot Ma'ariv in Rosh Chodesh. So he gets up, and he daven Shachris twice. The first Shemona Esrei, he says Ya'aleh V'yavo. That's great. That's what he's supposed to do. That was for Shachris. In the second Shemona Esrei, he did not say Ya'aleh V'yavo. So let's look at it. The second Shemona Esrei was a makeup for Ma'ariv. So do we say that since the Shemona Esrei was a makeup for Ma'ariv, he does not have to go back and it has the status of Ma'ariv? Or we say no. He was davening at Shachris time, and since he was davening at Shachris time, he didn't say Ya'aleh V'yavo, and he has to go back. So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. So he says, "Ein tzarich lachzor lispalel." You don't have to go back. Kemen da'afilo im hayim ispalel ba'arvis gufa. Since even if you daven Ma'ariv itself, b'shachach ein tzarich lachzor, you don't have to go back. Im kein lo yeh chamer me'hatashlumin me'ilo ispalel b'zmana. Since if you daven Ma'ariv in the right time and you forget Ya'aleh V'yavo, you don't have to go back. So too, if you're doing a makeup for Ma'ariv at Shachris time, the makeup shouldn't be more stringent than the regular davening of Ma'ariv, and of course you don't have to go back. V'chein im tav lo ispal mincha b'Rosh Chodesh, v'Rosh Chodesh u'shnei yamim. Now another case, let's say Rosh Chodesh is 2 days, and you forget, and you forget mincha on the first day of Rosh Chodesh, so that means you should daven 2 Ma'arivs. U'mispal arvish shtayim, and you daven Ma'ariv twice. Now it's still Rosh Chodesh. You forgot a Rosh Chodesh Shemona Esrei, Mincha, and Ma'ariv it's still Rosh Chodesh. V'ashniyahu l'tashlumin shel Mincha. And the second Shemona Esrei is going to make up for Mincha. Afilu lo hiskir ba Rosh Chodesh, ein tzarich lachzor. Even if you did not mention Ya'aleh V'yavo in the second Shemona Esrei, you don't have to go back. Keven da'afilu be'ikar hatfila da'arvis ein tzarich lachzor b'shvil Ya'aleh V'yavo kal v'chaymer mashu achshav l'tashlumin. So a similar case, but the opposite. He forgot to do Mincha of Rosh Chodesh. So like we mentioned, if a person forgets Ya'aleh V'yavo and Mincha, you got to go back. But here he forgot Mincha. So now he davens 2 Ma'arivs. So he davens the first Ma'ariv, he davens the first Shemona Esrei for Ma'ariv, great, says Ya'aleh V'yavo, perfect. But in the second Shemona Esrei, which is a makeup for Mincha, he forgot Ya'aleh V'yavo. So how do we view it? Do we say that, well now, it's Ma'ariv. He's davening at Ma'ariv time. So he didn't say Ya'aleh V'yavo, that's great. Or do we say, no, since this is a makeup for Mincha, and if someone forgets Ya'aleh V'yavo at Mincha, he's got to go back. So the Mishnah Berurah says that since it's Ma'ariv time, it shouldn't be more stringent than the actual Ma'ariv Shemona Esrei. Since if a regular Ma'ariv Shemona Esrei, if you miss Ya'aleh V'yavo, you don't go back. So too, over here at Mincha, when we're doing a makeup for Mincha, you don't go back if you forget Ya'aleh V'yavo. So both cases that we mentioned are both lenient. That if you're davening a makeup, the first case was you're davening a makeup at Shachris for forgetting Ma'ariv of Rosh Chodesh, and you forget Ya'aleh V'yavo in the second Shemona Esrei, you don't have to go back. So too, if you're doing a makeup at Ma'ariv for forgetting Mincha, and you forget Ya'aleh V'yavo in the second Shemona Esrei, you do not have to go back. Okay. Tzarich lachzor. So we mentioned the case of the Ramah, that if in our first case, again, I know we have a lot of cases here, but the first case where you forgot Shemona Esrei at Mincha Erev Rosh Chodesh, so before Rosh Chodesh, and then so you daven 2 Ma'arivs, and the case was you did not say Ya'aleh V'yavo in the first, and you said Ya'aleh V'yavo in the second. So in that case, you did not fulfill your obligation. Since you didn't say Ya'aleh V'yavo in the first, it shows that your first Shemona Esrei was meant as a makeup for Mincha and was not meant for Ma'ariv. So the Mishnah Berurah is going to comment on that. The bezeshelo hiskir berishona gali daite denischaven ba l'shem tashlumin shel erev Rosh Chodesh tahavichol. Like we mentioned, because it shows the first Shemona Esrei that he daven was meant for a makeup for the weekday. We already explained that if you daven the makeup Shemona Esrei before the regular Shemona Esrei, you don't fulfill your obligation. We're going to talk a similar case about Havdalah, Akain. Yachsu Yispal Hatfila. V'hanu dafik shetashlumin ba machmas tefila she'enu shel Rosh Chodesh. The kevan shel hisker Ya'aleh V'yavo rishona gali daite detzal rishona daite tashlumin shel chol. Aval imay Rosh Chodesh shnei yamim. Let's say this case. Rosh Chodesh is 2 days. V'lo ispal mincha b'yom rishon shel Rosh Chodesh. Shetzarich lispal arvi shtayim. So a case we mentioned before. Rosh Chodesh is 2 days, and on the first day of Rosh Chodesh, you missed mincha. So you have to daven Ma'ariv twice. on Rosh Chodesh. V'lo hiskir b'rishona yalav yavo. And you don't mention in the first one yalav yavo. Ein sarch lachzor hispal. So in that case, you don't have to go back. What's the reason? The leka raya de b'shvil tashlumin hispal. So there's no proof that the first Shmona Esrei, where you neglected to say Yalav Yavo, was for the Tashlumin. Why? Because it doesn't make any sense. Because that Shmona Esrei, which you missed, of Mincha, was where it was already Rosh Chodesh. The case the Ramah is talking about where your makeup Shmona Esrei was during the week. So here, in that case, the fact that you didn't say Yalav Yavo shows that you meant it for a weekday Shmona Esrei. But here, where you forgot a Shmona Esrei of Rosh Chodesh, the fact that you forgot Yalav Yavo shows absolutely nothing, so you don't have to go back. Od Kasu, the Achronim also state, the Masha Kasav HaRamah, that which the Ramah writes, the Imlo Hiskib Rishona v'Hiskib Rishniya Tzarach Lachzer Hanim Yilibistama Aval Im Kivim Beferish Harishona L'Shem Chova v'Ashniya L'Tashlumin L'Shlama Yatza. He adds the Mishnah Berurah adds one more caveat. In the case where you forget on Erev Rosh Chodesh to daven Shmona Esrei, so you daven Ma'ariv twice, and on the first one you do not say Yalav Yavo, and the second one you do say Yalav Yavo, that you did not fulfill your obligation because it was clear your first one was for Mincha. However, if you had explicit intent that your first one should be for Ma'ariv and the second one should be for Mincha, and you just made a mistake, but you had explicit intent that the first one should not be a makeup, it should be your obligatory Shmona Esrei, then you also fulfill your obligation. Okay. I apologize, I had a lot of details, but the main halacha we learned is that if someone forgets Shmona Esrei on Erev Rosh Chodesh, and he wants to daven a tashlumin, a makeup at Ma'ariv when it's already Rosh Chodesh, he should say Yalav Yavo in both Shmona Esreis. If you make a mistake and forget Yalav Yavo in one or not the other, please give me a call. You can use the phone on Rosh Chodesh because the details, as we just learned, get complicated. Have a beautiful day.